Welcome to Complexity Made Simple. My name is Paul Allen, and today we're going to do a software tutorial, and we're going to look at the software of choice for design of experiments called DOE Pro. Hope you enjoy it.
So what we're going to use is this particular little scenario here. So this is from my simulator that I use in class. The simulation is basically a filling machine, and there are four variables here: active pressure, inert pressure, flow ratio, and nozzle diameter. And the thing that we're interested in understanding, the thing that we're interested in optimizing, is the fill volume in the final product. So if I just switch the machine on, you'll see it just moving along there, and you can see some results for the volume just there. So what we're going to do, it's four variables. So because it's four variables at two levels, we are going to do a 2 to the 4 full factorial two-level DOE. Going to analyze it, then we're going to come back and do some confirmation runs, and we'll see if a linear model will actually satisfy the mathematical requirements of this system. So on another page, I've already created the 2x4. So there it is, 16 run full factorial. Of course, standard analysis, analyze design, marginal means plot, both the y hat and the s hat. So the first thing to notice, look, is the inert pressure. The inert pressure should be set down to 2 in order to keep the standard deviation nice and low. So that's something that we're going to adhere to whichever experiment we're doing, really, but we'll come back and just recheck that a little bit later. In terms of driving the volume, well, the inert pressure also seems to drive the volume quite strongly, but you also have a situation where the active pressure is strong and the flow ratio is strong. Nozzle diameter is having a small effect according to those, according to that diagram. So back to the data, back to the analysis. Analyze design, multiple response regression. Okay, now of course what we're going to do is regress the model down. Now I'm simply going to look, and I'm going to take all of those out. Those p-values are very high. They're certainly all above 0.1 or 0.05. 0.05, a reminder, the p-value will go red. You can see those red p-values higher up. If the p-value is below 0.1, it will go blue. So I'm going to take all of those out. They are all black. They're all too high. Regress. And the BC interaction now has just dropped in. It's gone blue. It's below 0.1. So that looks like it might be the final model, although the AC interaction now is black. So I'm just going to take that out. Regress, and there we have the completed model. I'll do a similar thing over this side. I'll start by removing the CD interaction because the coefficient is so small, tiny little coefficient. Regression. P-values come alive. They've all gone red for some reason, so I'm just going to leave that exactly as it's come up there. So now what I have to do, of course, is I have to go back to the process and I have to do a confirmation run. Now, in lots of the exercises that you may have done in class with me, the confirmation test was always done at the target. Now, I think in this case the target is 28. If I go to the capability screen and run the capability, let's have a look. 28.33 is the current average there according to those settings. 28.5 is where we want to hit. You can see that the standard deviation is way too big. So we have to bring the standard deviation down in order to get rid of that 25% defect rate you can see there. But you can see the target would normally be 28.5. And often when you confirm, you try to confirm at the target. But of course, this doesn't really confirm that the model is a linear model. The best place to confirm a model, of course, is at the center point of all the settings. So you can see here, look, active pressure, inert pressure. We've gone 5 to 15. The center point, look, in the yellow field is 10. Now the regression table always defaults to the center points. You can see that it's gone 10, 4, 0.6, 2.5, because that is where we really should do the confirmation test. And you can see, look, that we're not going to hit 28.5. We're actually going to hit 31.2 according to that prediction model. Now what you would do is go back to the process and you would do confirmation points at those midpoints, 10, 4, 0.6 and 2.5. Now in reality I've already done that. I've got the data sitting here. Look, here are the 6 confirmation tests that I've done. Now what we're going to do is the formal way of testing whether the model is linear or not. Just by eyeballing this data, it was supposed to land at 31, and just by eye you can kind of see that you're landing well above 31 constantly. So that's not a good sign in and of itself, but we're going to show you the formal way to do this. So I'm going to go Sigma Zone, I'm going to go Modify Design, and it said Add Rows. Now effectively what I've got is 2 additional rows of data. So instead of 16 rows of data, I'm going to turn that up to 18. What does that do? Well, it puts the space in there, look. And now it's waiting for me to tell it, where did you test? Well, I tested at 10, 4, 0.6 and 2.5. So we tested, let's put it in again. 10, 4, 0.6, 2.5. So now what I can do, I can copy and paste those confirmation points in. Okay, so that's what I've done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the computer to generate, let me go on the correct regression table, the finished model. If I sit on there, it will use this model now. I'm going to go back to the software and I'm going to ask it to generate the residual sheet. And here's the residual. Now what the residuals are is the difference between what the model would predict I'm going to hit and what we actually hit. And the residuals have been calculated for every data point, not just the confirmation test, but they've been calculated. So what the model will do now is it'll look back and it'll say, well, okay, for that first setup, 5, 2, 0.5 and 2 here, where did I predict I would land? Where did I actually land? And it will do that for every data point, and it will calculate the difference, and the difference is known as a residual. Okay, so we've done that. Now what I want to do is plot a graph of the residuals. So if I go residual analysis, residual plots, and it says which sheet do you want to use, so I want to use the residual sheet page. And what I'm going to get it to do, look, I'm going to go active pressure as one of the factors. And the output on this graph, I'm going to ask it to plot the residual values, the difference between the predicted and the actual. And then I'm going to say create chart, and I'm going to click done. I'm just going to blow that up so we can see it a little bit. There we go. Now what you can see, look, is a cluster on the left hand side where we set to the low, a cluster on the right hand side where we set to the high. So there's the 5 and the 15. Now if this model was a straight line, if this model was linear, the midpoints of course would be sitting spread around that line also. Not necessarily 50-50, there's only 6 of them. Not necessarily 50-50, but there should be some points low and high. And what you can see is we've effectively got this curve, look, to what's gone on. Now that is telling us that active pressure is not a linear relationship to the response. It has a curve in it. It has a quadratic in it. So now what we have to do is build a 3-level experiment. And I've already created a 3-level experiment, and let me show you what I've been able to do. This experiment that you're looking at on the screen is known as a central composite design. It's a central composite face design. And I've built this model now, and it already contains all the tests that we've already done. So even if I hadn't have done this test, if I'd gone straight to this, if I'd gone straight to this DOE, let's just delete that like that. The first thing it would have asked me to have done in the top 16 rows is a 2x4, full factorial. It would have asked me to do a 2-level DOE. Now we've already done that. It then would have asked me to do center points. The confirmation points were done at the center. So in other words, all of that data would have already have been asked for, and it is already available. So we haven't wasted the 2-level work that we've done so far. Now what we need to do is to go and run the last 7-8 rows and fill in the data that's missing. If I just shut this down and open it back up again. You will see that actually the central composite is there and completed. So imagine I've gone back to the process, I've collected those last 7 rows, and now I've populated all the data. So what have I done so far? I ran a 2-level DOE, then I tested it at the midpoint. Those first 18 data points in this pattern therefore have already been run. What I then did, I went to Sigma Zone. I went create design, computer aided, selected 3-level and selected a 4-factor central composite design. I then pasted my original data from my first test, first 18 rows, into the top of that pattern, and I went and collected the bottom data portion. Now what I have is the 3-level DOE waiting to be analysed. Now what do? Exactly what I did before. Analyse design, marginal means plot, both the y-hat and the s-hat. Let's take a look at this. What does it look like? Quadratic on that active pressure for standard deviation. There's the strong quadratic. Look on the active pressure for the mean. There's a strong quadratic on the nozzle diameter. The inert pressure, by the way, is still pretty much linear. It's a little bit of curvature there, and of course it's still telling me that you should get the inert pressure down to 2 in order to reduce the standard deviation. So we'll keep that in mind as we do the regression. Now, analyze design, multiple response regression. Remove the p-values that are nice and high. Let's get rid of these things. Sigma zone, analyze design, regression. Let's get rid of the AC. Okay, let's tidy up the standard deviation model now. So just a reminder, I'm going to do the interactions first, because if a variable appears in an interaction, even if it's not important itself, like active pressure here, if active pressure appears in an interaction, and it's in the AD interaction for instance, then it has to remain. So I've not dealt with the main effects yet in this model. I'm just going to regress down. All those quadratics can go, by the look of it, out of this portion. Let's get rid of those. Okay, what we got left? So D appears in interactions, C appears in interactions, and A appears in interactions. So they've got to stay. So that's as small as that model. That's as small as that model is going to go. And now, of course, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to ask it to hit the target, essentially. So I'm going to go Sigma zone, graphs and optimization, multiple response optimizer. I don't want it to move away from 2 on inert pressure, because inert pressure controls the standard deviation for me. I'm going to go equals 2 here, and the target is 28.5. Add constraint, optimize. Settings to worksheet. What does that thing say? Well, it says 5.78. I'm going to round that up to 5.8, by the way. I don't think I can hit 5.78, so I'm going to round that up to 0.8. The flow ratio is 0.53. I'm going to round that up. And the nozzle diameter is 29995, so I'm going to round that up to 3. Now, why have I done all that? Well, because now it's giving me a proper value for where we expect the test run to land. I've now told it the truth. I couldn't do all those little fractional settings, so I've told it the truth of where I'm really going to set the machine, which is 5.8. 2, so 5.8, 2, 5.3, and 3. And I'm going to go back to the machine. I'm looking for 28.38. I'm going to go back to the process now. Let's have a look. When am I setting this? 5.8. 5.8. DOE is down to 2. 0.53 and 3. Clear the previous result. Generate 100. Now I'm expecting to hit what? 28.3, and I've hit 28.11. So I'm pretty much where I expect it to be. And there is the confirmation run. Now if I hadn't have done that, I'd have been expecting to hit 28.5. I'd have been off center a little bit. I mean, I'm not exactly where the predictor said, but at least I understand one of the reasons why I'm to the left is because I can only put rounded settings into this machine. But there's the confirmation test. This 3-level model is now working fine. So we are within 0.2, whereas I think when we did the original DOE, let's take a look. Let's go back to my confirmation points. Remember, I was going to hit 31, and look, I'm 3 and 4 points away. Now I'm just 0.2 away. So the 3-level model, the curved model, is working so much better. So just a reminder, how did I do this? 2-level DOE, confirmation at the center points, then build a 3-level DOE, collect the extra data, create a curved model, and then confirm the curved model. The way I confirmed the linear model wasn't linear, was to test the center points and then generate a residual sheet and to plot the residuals. And that was how I found out. 2-level to 3-level model building using DOE Pro.
If you'd like to know more about any of the concepts covered in this video or any of the other concepts covered in my other tutorial videos, then here's my latest book, Drink Tea and Read the Paper. Covers everything you need to know about how to make sure that Six Sigma becomes world-class engineering in your company. Otherwise, if you'd like to get in touch with me, a little bit of help about Lean, a little bit of help with Six Sigma, please contact me on the email below.